just a few centuries, the world has experienced incredible economic growth. Over 20 years, economic growth has lifted almost 660 million people out of poverty, especially in Asia. The number of out-of-school children has decreased by 47%. Food production has increased by 45%. But at what cost? 5.2 million hectares of forest disappear every year. There is a water shortage. The Aral Sea, Lake Chad and the River Jordan, increasing agricultural extraction is threatening this invaluable resource. Species are disappearing 100 to 1,000 times faster than before. Climate change is disrupting harvests, causing disasters and threatening millions of people. A billion people go to bed hungry every night, even though obesity is on the rise. 2 billion people live below the poverty line, even though there are more millionaires than ever before. Growth has taken place at the environment's expense, and the profits have not been evenly distributed. We must create a new model. It's called the green economy. How much is a tree worth? A bird or a forest? Man should protect nature for its own sake. But perhaps a price has to be put on things and beings in order for us to realize just how precious they are. Insects pollinate the plants we eat. Trees produce the oxygen we breathe. Coral and mangroves allow fish to reproduce so we can fish. They do all this for free, and without them, our lives would be impossible. Economists are now trying to calculate how much all these services that ecosystems render to mankind are worth, and how much destroying them would cost, in order to convince the decision makers who are weighing up the costs and the profits. Natural resources seemed infinite when we used very little of them. But over a century, there has been a 27-fold increase in the extraction of ores and minerals. Every year, 68 billion tons of materials are extracted from the ground. Oil could soon be in short supply, but also lead, cadmium, copper and other metals. Even farmland is becoming scarce, even though the population keeps increasing. It's time to change this model. For centuries, growth was based on better work productivity, even if it meant wasting natural resources. In a world where resources are scarce and technology keeps evolving, the economy could rather focus on resource productivity, even if it requires more human labor. In other words, producing more with less. This can be done through eco-design, recycling, energy efficiency, and reducing waste. Over 20 years, energy efficiency has already improved by 23%, but this is just the start. 4 major industrial sectors can be used to illustrate this change. The Earth's surface receives more energy from the sun in an hour than mankind uses in a year. We only manage to harvest a tiny amount of this energy in one form or another. But this type of technology is improving. For the first time in 2010, the amount of renewable power installed exceeded that of nuclear power installed. Millions of jobs were created, and more will be created in the future. There are almost 1 billion vehicles circulating on Earth. They guzzle over half of the fuel that is consumed. But more economical vehicles, hybrid or electric, already exist and are creating a revolution within the car industry, not to mention public transport. Alternative modes of transport, such as free access to bicycles in cities, are becoming increasingly popular. About a third of all the energy consumed in the world is consumed in buildings. However, we can save significant amounts of energy in this area, using more efficient materials, window and roof insulation, lighting and low-energy equipment, but also reducing our energy consumption. With current technologies, we can reduce the consumption of new buildings by 50% while increasing construction costs by only 10%. In Europe, there is so much demand that the sector is experiencing a shortage of qualified workers. Every year, 11 billion tons of solid waste are collected. Recycling and reusing this waste helps reduce the exploitation and extraction of resources. In the food sector, wastage is especially shocking. 15 to 30% of food produced in developing countries is lost due to poor storage or transport conditions. In rich countries, 1/3 of food is wasted because supermarkets and households throw it away before it can be sold or consumed. Reducing this waste means feeding the planet, improving the income of 2 billion farmers and saving families money. All these changes come at a cost. But so does a lack of action, because not doing anything means courting climate disasters that will also affect the balance of ecosystems and destroy the social fabric. In a famous study, the economist Nicholas Stern showed that we would have to invest 1% of the global GDP to fight climate change. But no action would cost 5 to 20 times more. That is to say $5,000 billion, more than a world war. National and international authorities will play a major part in this change by setting up good practices, reforming tax systems and redirecting grants, for example. Today, between $1,000 and $1,200 billion are spent every year to fund fossil energy that worsens the greenhouse effect, intensive farming that damages soil and threatens biodiversity, and unsustainable fishing that destroys fish stocks. This money must be spent in other ways. In June 2012, leaders from all over the world met in Rio to think about the world of tomorrow. The results of the negotiations were disappointing because we can no longer keep patching up a declining economic system. But the impending change is not just political, it is also economic. Changing the world is no longer solely up to idealists and philanthropists. It is also up to entrepreneurs who want to consider our society's evolution and anticipate a shortage of resources and future crisis. It is also up to citizens who, through a multitude of decisions, can collectively change society. Creating a world more respectful of ecosystems, and especially of mankind, is not only desirable, it is also possible.